Welcome back to Love, Hope, and Faith. I'm Heather Murdoch here this morning with Dan Epperson, Mayor of Ione. That has a nice ring to it.
Oh, yeah.
Pastor first, and I know you've been a pastor. How long have you been a pastor?
Let's see, about 25 years, I guess.
Oh, wow.
Like that.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
since I was,
Like
since
three?
I was, yeah, pretty much, yeah. Pretty much, yeah.
So you grew up back east?
Yeah, I grew up in the Midwest, typical Midwestern. Peoria is the nearest thing out there, Illinois. My dad was an engineer at Caterpillar, and I worked, just going to school and all that. Growing up, went to college in Minneapolis, and moved to California in '93, up in Redding. Spent 7 years on the coast, and been here for 13.
13 years, okay. So you grew up, your parents was your dad you said he was an engineer?
Engineer, yeah.
But they were very involved with the church.
Oh, yeah, they always serve. My mom was the gal that, got everything together for the funerals and the weddings, and just always serving. My grandmother taught Sunday school, I think, for 68 years, I think, if I remember right, something like that.
That's great.
So we had to
Great
pull
legacy.
her out. Yeah, so I grew up, it came by it honest, but we all have to have our personal relationship. It wasn't just about going to church and being a, church kid. It was, at some point, you have to make a decision who you're going to serve and what you're going to serve, and yeah.
Exactly. So you became a believer, you received Christ when you were 5?
Yeah, my kitchen table, my home growing up there, my mom just asked me one day, and we prayed. Yeah.
So I always like to ask people if there was a moment. Was there a moment that Jesus became real for you? You mentioned that personal relationship. Was there a moment, or was it a process, and was it just your parents' faith?
No, I was about 13. I had a real, intimate conversation with the Lord. You can hear God's voice if you listen, but you have to listen. It's just, He just doesn't speak out loud often.
Right.
But yeah, I was feeling bad about some stuff and just kind of praying about some things, and I just began to, to make lists, like I was saying earlier, about how God answers prayer, and just seeing Him work in ways that I couldn't figure out, why, that was what else could it possibly be.
Yeah.
And I've always spent a lot of time in the woods. I've always enjoyed being outdoors, and that's kind of the place where I find a lot of what God does. You see His handiwork everywhere. It's hard to make, everything can't be just an accident. And the more things that I see, the more things that I witness, I'm just overwhelmed with all of the detail that's in life, whether it's the big detail of the universe or it's the small stuff that makes things live. And all those things together, you just can't escape it. It's just there all the time shouting at you, saying, hey, I'm real. Find me. Look for me.
Yes, amen. Yeah. I know when I drive into work or whatever, and I'm alone in the car, just the beauty. I'm just so overwhelmed by God's presence through nature.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing. And some people don't see it that way.
No. Well, I'm always been I believe science points towards God. True science reveals God in the intimate details of the universe, of the building blocks of life. You see the incredible order that's there. Whether it's the one chart or the other, or the helical DNA, all those things are so ordered.
Yeah.
You wouldn't see anything else in the studio, and you would say, oh, it was an accident. And it's way less ordered than the details of life.
Yeah, exactly. I know, there's a grand designer. There has to be, because of that order, like you said, it's not chaos, it's order.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So you were 13 at that point. So when did you know that you were called to be a pastor?
I was at a camp out with a bunch of guys, and the guy that was talking, he came up and he asked if anybody felt called to ministry, and he kind of described that. He said, well, what you need to do is you just need to get quiet, and you pray and ask God if that's something that, that's something maybe for you. I felt a resounding yes, and inside me, deep inside me, and I didn't really know what that meant, but I knew from that moment on that what I was to do. I just didn't know how to get there, and so I just, went to high school, graduated okay in school, went to college, did a lot better. I just kept praying about what to do, and I would never get a grand plan. I'd just get one little step, and so I'd go and do that. I ended up going to a college and graduated communications degree and a Bible minor. And towards the end of my college, I didn't know what I was doing. I had an intern at a TV station, done some pretty cool stuff. But when I really didn't know what I was going to do with the rest of my life, and so I wrote a letter to my youth pastor, and he invited me to come out to California and spend spring break. Who would take that?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So I can stay in Minnesota where it's 20 below zero, or I can go to California where it's 70 already.
Yeah.
So when I went out there and hung out with him and the group, and a few months later I moved to California, and that was kind of where I got started, and just went from thing to thing, and just kept following the path.
Yeah, I love that. So did you have doubts? Did you think, why me? How me?
Yeah,
Not me?
I don't know. I'm like, why am I up here? And I I don't know, I'm nobody special really. I'm just a guy who reads my Bible and loves God. I mean, I don't see myself as being a pastor of a large church. I mean, I'm happy where I'm at. I love the people we have. I love seeing people grow. I mean, the coolest thing, like probably in the last month or so, we've had a number of our kids that were there when I first got there, like 12, 13 years ago, stop by the house and say, "Hey, man, I just want to let you know that I've got a family, and life is good." And knowing where they came from. I talked to a young lady the other night. She was telling me, my mom was on drugs and drunk, that I would just go to the church and hide out there because I knew it was safe.
Wow.
And that really, kind of what we're there for, to really give people hope, give them options in life, because a lot of kids, they grew up around that just kind of follow the path and never think twice there's anything better out there. We've been able to be a part of a lot of kids' lives, and that's been really exciting to see that.
Because that continues. It's like throwing that stone in the water, and that ripple effect.
Sure.
It just impacts the generations.
You never know where it's going, but you just keep doing it and hoping that somebody hears and hoping somebody listens. And,
And sometimes we don't see the fruit of our labor, but sometimes God lets us see it, and it's really a blessing.
Sure. Yeah. I told my youth pastor friends, it's like, about 10 years from now, you'll know what's going on. But right now, just kind of hang in there and see what happens. In my church right now, we have probably 3 or 4 families that were in the teen camp I directed 20 years ago. They met there, fell in love there, got married, and here they are, part of my church.
That's so neat. That's
bizarre. Cool. It's like, now I feel old again.
Yeah, exactly.
All my kids have kids.
Yeah, exactly. So did you grow up in a Pentecostal church?
Yeah.
Okay, and your church is Pentecostal now?
Sure is, yeah.
Yeah, so I haven't had a lot of people on. It's weird how things kind of go in spurts, but lately I've just had a lot of Pentecostal people on my show.
Yeah.
So not that it's something like Pentecostal people like, it's something so different, other than it's just a little. In fact, I think we're cousins in Nazarene Church with the Pentecostal Church because our theology is from John Wesley, right? And so I believe so, at least. I think. Yeah.
I mean, we just our church, we preach the Bible. It's nothing too fancy. We got good music, good people. We have a lot of fun. Try to keep it very non-political. I mean, we like to have a good time, talk about the realities of life, and I'm not really I'm kind of bread and butter, call it like I see it, and some people like that, some people don't, but I'm not preaching to them, I'm preaching for, God. So.
How do you prepare for a sermon?
Usually, they always say a good sermon takes about most of your life to write it, so, I mean, usually it's just a matter of just what goes on that week and how I'm feeling about things, and a lot of it just comes out of my life and how to apply God's word to that, and sit down and spend some good time just studying and preparing, and a couple good nights on a good sermon will do you well. So,
exactly. I mentioned earlier in the beginning of the show about I read this article that said 95% of churchgoers have never heard a sermon relating biblical principles to apply them in their work.
Oh, wow.
So isn't that surprising?
Yeah.
It's not, you think, why isn't there like workplace ministries that people should start those, because it really is a mission field. It really is. And it really is, we spend the majority of our waking time at work. And there's so much opportunity there I like what you said, to preach a sermon without saying a word, be a living sermon. And do you ever talk about work issues? I mean, not your personal work, but
sometimes.
How to help people apply their faith in their work.
Yeah, like this last thing I was talking about. You got to know the environment that you're in. It's very critical that you know what your rules are, what you're permitted to do. Because your boss, he signs the paycheck, so you need to know what he's expecting out of you, what you're allowed to do. Mostly, I think the big thing is, again, just being a good friend. Not being duplicitous. You don't want to be saying one thing and doing another. Do what you say you're going to do. Follow through.
Exactly. Follow through.
When people are, people are hurting, notice it. You don't have to go into big details, but just say, hey, if you need to talk or need to help out, let me know. I'm there for you. And just let them know that you care. That's the big thing. Because a lot of people, it's just, our life is so. Modern times, we have lots of neighbors, but most of us don't even know their first names.
Exactly.
And I like where I live now because I know my neighbors, and we hang out, we talk, we go do things together sometimes, and kids play together, that kind of stuff. But it really, most of what you do is building relationships so that people have a difficult time. they trust you enough to want to ask you for help. And that doesn't just include the basic necessities of life, but also the spiritual matters.
I read an article, I think it was a blog actually, it was so intriguing, the title was so intriguing, it was something like, How the Garage Door Opener Has Killed Community.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm like, what's, I gotta read this.
Yeah.
And so basically, just what you said, the whole premise was that, in the 50s, people didn't have garage door openers.
Yeah.
And so they would pull up to their, driveway, right?
Sure.
And they would get out of their cars, and everyone's coming home around the same time. They, hey, Jim, hey, Bob, hey, Sue, and talk, whatever. And then go open your garage by hand.
Yep.
And then go in. Well, now people, they don't get out of their cars. They go straight, click, open the garage, they pull in, never see their neighbors, go in their house, and that's it.
Yeah, the only fences I grew up around were the ones to keep dogs in most of the time.
Yeah.
Most of our neighbors, we had like a hedgerow or something, so you always saw your neighbors just in the yard one way or the other. But there was never front yard fences were not a thing.
Yeah. And I think it's so important to be in community and just, love people right where they are and right where you are, like you're saying.
Very much so.
So I know you're a hunter.
Yeah.
So tell us about that, because I know, in fact, we talked off camera and you said that some people have asked you, well, how can you be a man of God and be killing animals or be into guns?
Read the Old Testament. No.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So what's your answer to that?
God called us to manage the earth, not to destroy it. So,
Right.
Most hunters I know honestly give back a lot, as much as they take out. If you go down to Jackson Creek, if you're going through there, you'll see wood duck boxes, and I hung them there. The kids from my church did some of them 10 years ago, but they're little things to give back to it. But I also like to eat wood ducks too. I'm not there to kill them all. I'm there to eat a few.
Right. Yeah.
I also teach hunter education class, which a lot of people in the community know me from, and teaching the class. And that's teaching solid ethics and a balanced way of living. And I always tell people I eat organic, organic meat mostly. But
Yeah. Exactly. So it's about being a steward.
Sure, definitely.
A good steward.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. It's right for a quick, clean kill and enjoy the benefits of that. Sure, definitely.
And it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Yep.
Okay, well, we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back. Stay tuned.